I'm being silenced!
Ladies, gentlemen, and Vault Hunters of all ages, thanks to the folks over at Gearbox Software, we've been given early access to Borderlands 4 ahead of its launch next week, and recently I went over my first impressions as much as I'm allowed to, but today I wanted to do something a bit more fun, which is talking about a number of details or discoveries or just fun things going on in Borderlands 4 that I found and thought were worth sharing within the fairly limited amount of stuff I'm allowed to talk about before proper release of the game. Some of this stuff is somewhat known information if you've been properly following news about the game, like dev interviews or gameplay releases. Some of the things were just totally unknown before this, and some of it was out there already somewhat, but just in pretty obscure places. First up then, new feature for the series: when you are reloading a gun in Borderlands 4, it will show you exactly how long it will take you, with a descending timer below your ammo count. You've been able to see the reload speed of weapons as a stat on gun since the second game, but this is the first time it's actually been represented in a super readable way on the screen during gameplay. Some players will never look at this, never realize it's a thing, or even if they do know, they might never care about it at all. Others, though, will find it extremely helpful and useful, but regardless of which camp you fall into, I thought it was a cool new feature worth talking about, and as a bonus note on that specifically, if you look closely at it, the reload technically finishes taking effect with 0.5 seconds remaining of the animation, as the ammo count does go up there. This means you can change guns and the reload will still be finished. This is pretty niche, but it means if you're going to do something like swap guns anyways, you can finish your reload before doing so half of a second faster and skip just a little bit of that animation time. Next up, another new feature for more information about your character on the skill tree screen. There is a new prompt you can press in the corner to show you player stats, and this is something I have wanted for ages from Borderlands, which is a condensed look at all of your combined bonuses. The detail on this is pretty solid too. Obviously there's some other things that I would like too, stuff like action skill cooldown rate as an example. I just think that anything that can be on your skill tree should be represented in here in some fashion. However, this is way better than anything we've had in this series so far. That said, it's also worth noting I am only level 15 and the gear I have on is pretty limited, so the actual numbers that you'll see on here don't matter at all. It's just the fact that this screen exists, that these stats are visible to the player in a nice additive location, because you can see how much useful information you'll be able to get from it, especially late game or end game when you have a lot more complexity going on inside your build. After that, with a returning feature I know controller players especially will be happy to see, the weapon wheel is back. This was omitted from Borderlands 3, it was not a part of that game, but now if you hold down the ping button, the weapon wheel will come up, letting you easily swap between whatever weapon you want to. Something that isn't actually new, but that some players never realize, is that your perspective is dependent on the height of your Vault Hunter. Back in Borderlands 2, I was a big fan of Salvador the Gunzerker, who was tiny, and his perspective was comically low compared to every other character, and I loved that. In Borderlands 4, I'm currently playing as Amon, and it's the exact opposite. He's massive, and your perspective is very high up. Like, your perspective is almost as tall as the vending machines, and I think that's funny. I love that this series doesn't just have a set player camera height and actually physically adjusts it to match the Vault Hunter you have chosen. And you could argue it makes it slightly easier to hit the heads if you're taller too. On the topic of Amon then, this is the only character-specific thing I wanted to share today. He's got the Onslaughter action skill, which gives him a rocket punch ability, which leaps to the enemy that you're targeting and fires a cone melee out in front of you. The actual leaping part of this is way longer range than I imagined seeing the preview footage they put out. It is immensely long, and combined with the double jump and the air glider feature, you can actually use this to fight flying enemies without ever needing to touch the ground. It may not be the most safe tactic to do so, but I just love that we live in an era of Borderlands gameplay where you can basically have a mid-air fist fight straight out of Dragon Ball. Moving on, just something neat that I wanted to call out: the audio in this game is incredibly detailed and it's awesome. Not only is there stuff that you might expect at this era of gaming, like different footstep sounds depending on the surface, but even things like the sliding sound effect is different depending on the precise surface. And some surfaces are super squeaky sounding, and I just love that they had that type of detail to do that. But not only that, that's not why it is an entry in today's topic. This is just a lead-in to the existence of audio settings. If you go to the advanced section of the audio settings, this gets pretty nuts. Rarely if ever have I played a game with this many separate audio settings and sliders, letting you customize the way that you hear this game in so many different ways. You can do a million things with it, including my favorite part, honestly, don't get me wrong, I love Claptrap, but there's a setting in the advanced audio options called Claptrap, and this is literally a 0 to 100 volume slider for specifically Claptrap's dialogue. And this has got to be one of the funniest, most specific settings I have seen in a game that I also absolutely believe people will be wanting to use and adjust. Not everyone, of course, but there's definitely a sect of players who just despise Claptrap. Next up on the note of settings then, let's talk about your compass and radar. By default, you have just a compass at the top of your screen to show you the locations of enemies nearby and objectives, stuff like that, which is far less information than you usually got from your HUD in a Borderlands game before now. If you go into the gameplay settings, there is a toggle radar display option that then gives you a proper radar for combat that gives you way more information about enemy locations. This isn't necessarily new knowledge, it is something that is known about the game, but previously the only talk about the radar that I've heard of is some tweets from Randy Pitchford, so I thought this was worth actually showing. After that, I want to quickly talk about armor shields because they're new and I find them absolutely fascinating. Unlike the regular shields we've always had in Borderlands games, there are new ones in Borderlands 4 called armor shields. These have segments of armor that add up to the full total number that the shield can hit, and unlike regular shields, they will constantly regen while you are in combat, even if you are taking damage actively, and that's the little meter above the item that is constantly ticking up. This will replace one segment of armor when it fills. While the armor is active, on top of it counting as bonus health the same way that shields do, it also just gives you flat damage reduction as a bonus. So in essence, this is the shield that they want frontline style players to be using. People who are right up in the middle of combat constantly, so people are using stuff like shotguns and submachine guns right in front of the enemy's face, and will never realistically spend much time without taking damage. But having used both types of shields on a frontline build, they're both great for their own reasons. They have their own niches, and honestly, I'm just super happy that these armor shields exist because it makes shields so much more interesting than they've ever been. Moving on, a fun little detail is that weapon optics will update and change how they look, even when you are not scoped in. This weapon is a great example because it has a massive scope and a very visible dot in the middle to show it with, but if you hover over an enemy, the optic turns red and scrunches up a little bit. For a friendly, it would turn green instead, but I just find it a fun and probably unnecessary detail that if you look at it, you can see the optic actively changing as I hover my crosshair over enemies on and off, even though I'm not actually aiming down the sight, so it's not really a relevant thing that needs to be shown. Next up, you can fast travel from pretty much everywhere, even in combat. I can only show you this one fast travel node, as this area is the only thing I'm allowed to share right now, but this is how fast travel works in the game. You can fast travel from the map in Borderlands 3, but I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that you can do this and even during combat so that nobody makes the mistake of only fast traveling from fast travel stations themselves, because you can do it right from your map. Then another detail that I really appreciate, if an enemy downs you, the vast majority of them do have a unique taunting animation and voice line. Most of them will stay in active combat, but the specific enemy who dealt the last hit to you will start showing off and bigging themselves up and calling you a loser and stuff like that. It's just one of those things that makes this series what it is. After that, second last one today is about grappling. When you use the grapple gun in Borderlands 4, you shoot up at the platform above the target, and by default, when you do this, it will tilt your camera downwards. I can see the occasional advantage of this, like if there's an enemy directly on the ledge, this can save you from having to aim the whole way down when you are looking up to get the grapple to begin with. It makes sense for people using controllers with lower sensitivity, but I find this motion jarring, and I also think it takes away some player agency and control, especially when I'm using a mouse and keyboard. So the main point of this is to tell you this isn't mandatory. It's not a thing that has to be a part of the game. I know a lot of early footage will have this on and will look like this because it is default, but there is a setting in the accessibility options under gameplay at the bottom here called Grapple View Tilt. Again, it's on by default, which is why with no camera movement, you will just look slightly down every time you grapple. But if you turn it off, you have free range of movement entirely. Your camera does not adjust, it points where you are already aiming, and while personally I find this to be far better turned off, I mostly just wanted to make sure that you actually know it's an option, whether you want it or not. Then finally, echolocation. The Echo 4 drone is one of our new little tools in Borderlands 4. This is in pre-release trailers and dev interviews and stuff, so no information on the fact that it exists, but you may not have known that it has a function called echolocation. The main function of this is to give you a direct path going right towards your current chosen objective. This is partially to make up for the fact that there's no longer a proper minimap in the game in order to try and make it more immersive on the whole, when you aren't obviously having the giant yellow line on your screen. But a secondary function of the echolocation mechanic that is good to be aware of is that it will also highlight in green any interactables like ladders, grapple points, and stuff like that that can help you reach an area that you may not otherwise know how to get to. So if you ever find yourself lost when trying to get something you can clearly see that you could stand stand on top of. Even if the objective trail doesn't help you, try pressing the echolocation button just to see if there's like a grapple point that you're not able to see from your current angle, because vertical exploration is definitely a thing in this game. That just about does it for today, then, everyone. A bunch of fun details are just good things to know about for Borderlands 4 from the limited amount that I'm able to share with you guys early. Some more minor, some genuinely useful, some just cool things to be aware of that you might not have known. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you all set foot on Kairos for yourself next week. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, I'm the conductor of the poop train!
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.